Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, presented as always by our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. We got that 4-0 feeling, Sean Smith. How the heck are you?
I'm fantastic. And just when you think they're off a week and you could have a little bit of a letdown or maybe just some rust, they go out and just continue to do their thing, Jack. And it shows the discipline of experienced team. But I don't think they're just an experienced team. I think they're a very good team.
I would argue that was the number one talking point going into the game. How do they respond? We have seen young freshman-led teams in that exact moment. We've experienced it. UNC Wilmington, Evansville, just go down the list of slip-ups. St. Joseph's last year, where you're just like, how are we where we are right this second? And, you know, sometimes they claw and fight their way to an ugly win. Sometimes you take one on the chin and you lose. So I think that Kentucky fans are just so accustomed to like just the PTSD of that, just the trauma that comes with some of those early season slip-ups, whether you get too high for a Champions Classic or a CBS Sports Classic, and then immediately follow with a letdown. So we'll talk about what Mark Pope said about that and just the mindset behind trap games and how he actually doesn't believe they exist. I think that was the most hilarious takeaway of the win. But let's talk about how we got there. A 97-68 victory over Lipscomb, a team projected to win the ASUN. One of the best players, if not the best player in the ASUN, kind of anchoring things in the front court, a very versatile stretch 4, stretch 5, like a lot of kind of, good pieces, a good system and foundation to work with. It's a good test. I really liked having Lipscomb on the schedule, especially where it was on the schedule immediately after Duke, because I thought we would learn quite a bit about the team and just the mentality and where they were. And for them to go out and coast to coast, start to finish, immediate tip off to the final buzzer, never trail, and I mean, to firmly lead, not just like, feeling pretty good about this, but to pummel them to a pulp from start to finish. That's what you want to see. And again, it wasn't perfect. There were sloppy moments. We'll talk about some of the downfalls and things that we're still looking at, and things that Pope is looking at specifically. But man, I'm never going to complain about a 29-point win against a team projected to win their conference. Brandon Ramsey said it best. This is a team that is very likely going to end up in the NCAA tournament as a 15 or 16 seed, winning their conference. To go and beat them soundly, winning by 40 points with 4 minutes left. I mean, that's what you want in this type of moment, especially with the timing immediately following Duke. I loved what I saw on Tuesday night.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's spot on. Like, this is the team that you expect to see in the field of the NCAA tournament. And you went out and you took care of business, and it wasn't sloppy, and you've been off a week. You just had a massive victory. You've jumped into the top 10 of the AP poll, a place that I'm sure there's people in the national media and following that probably thought Kentucky never would get there this year. And now they're starting to change the tune and think that they're one of the better teams in college basketball. But to go out there and take care of business the way that they did, and if they wouldn't have had that stretch at the end, they score more, and then they probably hold them to a lot less as well. So overall, when you look at this win from top to bottom, Jack, it's another one that continues to just solidify what I think Kentucky is. And I'm not sure what it's going to do for you net wise when all that comes around. But if this is a team that's projected to win its conference and play in the NCAA tournament, then you beat a team that as a program you have struggled to get past in the NCAA tournament the last 2 out of 3 or 4 years. I mean, those 14, 15 seeds, and those are the numbers Kentucky struggled with. And they just took one at Rupp Arena and just said, hey, you're next on the schedule. You're the next victim here. And let's take care of business. Also, it's the first one that Kentucky fans and everybody can kind of compare with Arkansas, right? Like it's a familiar.
We're going to be doing that a lot this year, I feel.
You will. And this is the first one where I think a lot of people, and even on the Arkansas message boards, I've seen some stuff flipping going, maybe Kentucky's actually pretty good. Like, you're starting to see, some of those things popping up about this team. But, hey, they take care of business, and they do it well. and it's been somebody different every single game. Like Andrew Carr was the closer against Duke. He wasn't mainly the guy against Lipscomb, but it shows Kentucky's depth and just how good they can be, Jack, and they come at you in waves.
The storyline going into that stretch, the Bison part of the Bison sandwich that we're dealing with right now with Bucknell, the Bucknell Bison, which again, this is the dumbest thing on the planet. I cannot believe that these morons, doing the research on Lipscomb coming into this, they say we are the Lipscomb Bisons. Grammatically incorrect. I know there's like one dictionary that says it's inappropriate, and that's what they're using. But whatever. No, the plural of bison is bison. It always has been, always will be. So you look up like why, like what is the reasoning for it? And they're just like, because we can. Because we can be the Bisons, because there's one dictionary that says it's possible and we're allowed to, so we're gonna do it. And you're like, okay, but like, why? Like, do you have a specific reason? Or no, they have no reason besides it's technically allowed in one very specific dictionary, so we're going to. So that really just pissed me off to go into this matchup to begin with. But the sandwich of Bison/Bisons, the talking point going into the Bucknell matchup was, don't look ahead to Duke. How can you not, stay in the moment? Mark Pope talking about the Japanese proverbs and all that stuff. How can you not look ahead to Duke and stay in the moment and be still focusing on Bucknell? You go and beat them by 28 points. Then you turn your attention to Duke, take care of business exactly the way we all hope that one unfolds. And then the next tricky part of that dynamic is, okay, how long are you going to celebrate the Duke win? Are you going to overlook an opponent just because of the name on the front of their jersey or the conference that they play in? Because of you earn this new level of entitlement. You come in as a top 10 team now, as opposed to the chip on your shoulder under, trying to prove that you belong in the national rankings and, the conversation. You've earned that. So I was really just interested to see the approach and to go in there and come away with a 29-point win and lead by as many as 40. It's what you want to see. And I want to kind of bring up that quote that Mark Pope talked about when he was asked, like, hey, were you worried about a hangover? Were you worried about a letdown performance? And he said, we don't stress. Like, we don't get nervous. We don't worry because it doesn't actually work. Sometimes we think of a team as a letdown after a big win. It's like, oh man, if the coach had just thought about the possibility of it being a letdown and prepared this team for no letdown, it wouldn't have happened. What happens is we all just overkill, right? We just start pushing this narrative so hard with our team, we actually don't do it at all. We are always going to be focused on what we need to do. And then he's talking about, human nature. Sometimes that creeps up, but we're hungry to get better. We're hungry to become a great team. We don't have a lot of time to do it. So the last game was over and it was kind of on to like, how can we get better? How can we get better? That's the only thing that we talked about. And he was talking about the psychology, the neuroscience of that, saying the biology that, the neuroscience of that is in 100% support of that. We're not going to focus on what we don't want to have happen. We're going to focus on what we do want to have happen. Our guys have received this really well. We did not spend much time on that at all, and we won't. That's not the way we do it. So he's not saying that they're going to make every single shot, that there's not going to be highs and lows, but they're never going to get to the point where there is a roller coaster of emotions, where the Duke game becomes bigger than just 1 of 31, or the Lipscomb game becomes less than 1 of 31. So just the mindset is exactly what you want to be. And I don't know how much of it is because of the maturity and because of the experience and age of the team, but it seems like a trickle down from the coaching staff that even when we do have younger teams moving forward, this might not just be an issue at all with just the way that this coaching staff rolls through the game plan week by week.
It's one of those things that as a coach, I think that sometimes you get caught up in thinking that, like you said, there's a trap game or this is the perfect letdown. Well, if you start talking about avoiding that, you almost bring it into play, because then you get them thinking about not having a letdown game. instead of just going about your business, sticking to your routine, preparing for every single game the same. I'm willing to bet the scouting report had the same amount of stuff on it for Lipscomb as it did for Duke. They had the same approach, whatever model they use when it comes to personnel. It was probably documented. This guy does this. Here's these tendencies. Here's what they do well. Here's some clips for what they do with their sets. Here's what they do defensively. Here's how we can take advantages. You treat each and every game on your schedule the same. And I kept saying it going into Duke. That 40 can't affect the next 40 or the 40 that follows that when it comes to minutes in a game. And I think this was an excellent job, Jack, in just showing that they're going to stay the course and be who they are and kind of stick to what they want to do. And we're talking about a conference that they're picked to win, that a team in their conference had already beaten South Carolina. So North Florida had already beaten South Carolina and Georgia Tech, and they went on the road and competed with Georgia. I believe they lost that game by about 12-13. So that's a conference that team in Lipscomb has picked to win, and they've already had a team in that conference already go on the road and win 2 games against power conference opponents, an ACC and an SEC opponent. So I'm sure that that's probably something that's been brought up too. Like, hey, this is a conference that's got good basketball team in it. That's also EKU's conference. So there's good competitive basketball there. That's a good Lipscomb team that went on the road at Arkansas and was in it late. But Kentucky did its job, Jack. They made shots. They played well. Everybody chips in. The rotation is starting to be solidified. You're starting to kind of see where Mark Pope's going to go. I think it's going to be those 8 and Almanor kind of as that 9. And I like what they're doing 4 games in and where they're trending. Like, I woke up this morning and I text somebody and I said, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but Kentucky looks like a top 5 team. And I didn't know if I would be saying that on November 20th. Don't want to be a prisoner of the moment of, man, they look really good. But then again, they pass a lot of tests. And when you look at them on paper and you look at them on film and just how they play and how much better I think they're going to get as a unit, that team looks like one of the best teams in college basketball. And I don't know if anyone really saw that coming. Even us. I don't know if we saw it being like this. This is a well-oiled machine right now.
In the prisoner of the moment thing isn't Duke. Like, it's not that you watched that game and said, oh, we're a top 10 team. You work through, A plus B equals C. Like, you beat a, number 6 team in the country, so you belong in the top 5. It isn't as simple as that. It's the, like you said, the individual tests that they've just answered and aced every single one in the individual moments, like the opener and the weight on their shoulders of, Mark Pope's debut, like, the little things. What about game 2 when, you're not, stakes aren't as high and, maybe can you overlook all the little kind of narratives that pop up every single time? They've been like, yeah, that doesn't exist. Yeah, that's not a problem. They've been just so, and the preparedness has been so just clear. I mean, and I going back, Cameron Mills said on the broadcast, the pregame show leading up to it, that Mark Pope quizzes players on the scouting report during the walkthroughs that he was talking about, the 25 to 45 page scouting reports that they had under Rick Pitino, and how Mark kind of has a very similar approach where they know the ins and outs and lefts and rights and ups and downs of every single one of these teams that they take on. When you can see that, I mean, it just feels like the scout is always just superb. And, I feel like we're playing the comparison game, but it's a breath of fresh air for the people that know how things have gone on the last couple of years where that hasn't been the case. But he said, when you get to Pope scouts, we would have to memorize our scouting reports. I don't know what he physically gives them, but he expects it to be up here, because in walkthroughs, he has this thing where he asks questions to random players at random times, and they have to answer him in 3 words. Give me 3 words about number 41 tonight, and they have to answer that in 3 words. After watching him do that, they've already got the scouting report down, and that's for Lipscomb. So there isn't going to be an opportunity for a late night Tuesday, 9:00 tip off against, fill in the blank school, Vanderbilt on, super late tip off, like the sleepy performances, they're just groggy, it just doesn't feel like that's going to be a thing. And again, maybe it is because they are so prepared from an experience standpoint. We've been there, done that. We have been the mid-major team, Ansley Almanor was the mid-major player that beat the high majors that overlooked him in the past. So maybe he knows, like, hey, we know what that looks like on the other side. If you don't take us seriously, we got to kind of return the favor, looking to distribute the first shot and not say, hey, let's, Lipscomb's going to give us their best shot. It's like, yeah, let's not even give them a chance to give their best shot. You just love the approach that they're bringing every single game. Again, another ace test, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying by you treat this game the same way you treat Duke. You treat this game the same way you treat Gonzaga here in a few weeks, and your preparation is the same. And now you've got a routine. These guys know, like, okay, this is what I'm looking for in scouting reports. These are the 3 or 4 things that this guy does. And like you said, you got it. Mark Pope quizzing his players on that. It's helping them retain those details that they want to know going into each of these individual matchups. And Jack, like, this is a team that, to me, it's continuing, like, and I've heard the conversation, has Kentucky peaked? And that's what everybody decided to do with the Duke win. They decided to say, well, that's the best moment of Kentucky's season. They've peaked. Come on now. So here's what I'll say about that. Are there teams in college basketball that have individual players that have higher ceilings, that are going to reach higher ceilings than Kentucky? Yes. But here's the deal. These guys have played 4 official basketball games together as a team, and look how cohesive they are. The more they play together, the better and stronger the unit is going to get. Now, the individual players, they probably are what they are, but the chemistry, the cohesiveness, all those things that they do, the details, that is all going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, which is going to help Kentucky not peak, in my opinion, even though they're old. This is still a young team when it comes to how many games they've played together. But the individual experience that each one adds is what makes them old and what makes them so good. But playing more games together, just wait until you're game 10 in or you're game 20 in, and they know each other even better. And they know this system even better. Now, me and you talked all summer, and everybody had confidence in the system. We thought the system would make Kentucky good, and it has. But here's what has solidified itself through 4 games for me. These players have also taken that system, and both have made it good. These are really good players in this system, and it's not just system producing results for Kentucky. These guys are really good college basketball players that have played a lot, and they're also skilled, that it's, to me, validated just how good I think Kentucky can actually be this year. The system is what it is, but these guys are taking it to another level, Jack. Like, this is a talent upgrade from what he had at BYU. But it's not the talent he's going to have year 2 or 3 down the road. But, man, it's really good right now for what this system's producing. And I think it's putting out a top 10 team in college basketball, on a team that's going to be right there wire to wire.
Sean, a 4th consecutive game that a new leading scorer has presented itself. Another high-scoring game, 97 points for 3 of 4 times for Kentucky to start the season. The only outlier, obviously, being Duke. But it's a different, you talked about just the overall talent. And, with 4 guys that have led the team already in scoring, and you still have Amari Williams, Lamont Butler, and Kerr Kriisa that haven't yet. And, shoot, Ansley Almanor might pop off one day for, 15, 17, something like that. So, like, we're talking pretty likely 7 guys, maybe as many as 8. Do you expect that? Was that something that you expect? Does that change anything for you that, Andrew Carr was the guy against Duke, and then you get Jaxson Robinson being the guy you expect him to be against Lipscomb, and then Lamont Butler has his best scoring night, and you expect there are going to be nights that he does goes above and beyond that. So does that change help kind of drive home your point even more, or change anything about it, knowing that like there's a very real chance that by the season ends 8 guys are going to be leading this team in scoring?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. I don't think it's an area that shows any concern, because I know last week we had a lot of conversation late in the show about, do they need a guy, right? Like, do they need a guy that they're going to play through that's going to go get them a bucket? And I think if you get to that point, you become dependable on that guy. And then what happens is what has happened to a lot of teams is, if that guy gets hurt or that guy goes down, it's a major drop, because it throws you. It changes how you play late. This system is going to produce. It produced Andrew Carr late in a moment against Duke. Now, we didn't get an in-game winning moment against Lipscomb. You're going to get it maybe on the road at Clemson. You're going to get it on a neutral site game against Gonzaga. You're going to find out then what is the matchup that Kentucky goes to win those games. But last night early, you see Jaxson Robinson making shots. He didn't make shots against Duke. So that's a bounce back for him. You saw Lamont Butler getting involved early and making plays. Andrew Carr was the closer against Duke. Didn't add a ton offensively last night, but he still was productive and still played the most minutes of anybody on the team.
With the highest plus minus as well.
Yep. So still effective. And that's the balance that Kentucky has. It has a balance with what it wants to do offensively, but it also has a balance of who makes plays. And when you run a system like Kentucky runs and you have so many guys that can take advantage of opportunities and do things, it's going to be somebody different every single game, depending on who they're playing. Where's the matchup? Where Kentucky win? And you mentioned it with a minute ago about Ansley Almanor. He is going to have a night where I think he's going to make a difference in Kentucky winning or losing a game. And he is bought into his role. That is a great 8-man rotation plus Almanor. I am adding a plus Almanor when it comes to how I break down this roster, because I'm telling you, Jack, every single team in college basketball would love a 9th man like Ansley Almanor, a guy that is bought into his role, will come in and take and make shots from the corner and knock down threes, be willing to defend, be willing to rebound. And if he plays 16 minutes or if he plays 12 minutes or if he has a game where he's got to stretch and play 18 to 19, he'll do it. That is a valuable thing to have on the back end of your rotation.
And we're talking about the offensive numbers. Mark Pope saying that he has a magic number in his mind. This is the 4th consecutive game that Kentucky has held its opponent to under 40% shooting. So 39 is the number that he has in his mind, that, never want to eclipse that had 39.8, 39.4, but never have gotten actually past that. They tried. They got very, very close there in the last 6 minutes, giving up 20 points in that stretch. When you got Travis Perry, Trent Noah, and Colin Chandler in, things kind of got a little sloppy, and you wanted it to kind of stick with the 40-point win instead of trending back down under into the 20s. But, whatever. We're nitpicking at that point. But what do you think about that number, that 40% number? How sustainable is that? Is that something, again, this is a team that we talked so much about the offensive production and just the identity and the culture that they were going to establish on that end of the floor, to follow that up by, having a pretty, I think 35th in the KenPom defensive numbers already with, they're going to be one of the best, highest rated offenses all year long, but we could probably pencil them in for being a top 40, top 30-ish defense as well. How sustainable is that in your mind?
I think it is sustainable. And I don't really want to cap what I think they can be on that end of the floor, because here's what happens when you have late spurts in games like that where you don't look good and you get outscored. It affects your efficiency numbers, especially when you're still being kind of punished because of where they were defensively a year ago. Like, KenPom has not completely cycled out last year's results yet. Like, it'll get there. You're probably going to get a more accurate read on what they are in KenPom, probably 10 plus games. And then it's kind of starting to cycle its way in. Like, right now, where they are offensively, defensively, it's probably not accurate of what they actually are, but they're going to continue, I think, to climb in both and get better and better and better. But that's every team in college basketball, right? Like, last year's numbers are still kind of baked into what you're doing. And that's the whole thing about KenPom early. Like, you can't put a whole lot in it because it's based off of so much from the previous year. But the commitment to defense, and if they can hold to that percentage, and that's a team goal that they have, then that is something in every single timeout. It's probably on the chart, Jack. Like, hey, this team is shooting this percentage from the floor right now. You need to lock in and defend. That's a goal. And if they do that, they're going to try to shoot a certain number of threes in a game. And we know that percentage, like, look, last night they were very efficient from three offensively. And they didn't even get near their number that they want to take. Like, nowhere near their number. And I know that's something that Mark Pope's going to continue to talking about. Like, man, I'd like to see us take probably 33, 34, 35 threes a game. Well, they shoot last night, 12 of 25 from three as a team.
12 of 25. And Mark Pope was kind of pissed about it. He said, we do not, he said, that is not our identity. That's not who we're going to be. 25 is not good enough. And it was like, dang, 40% on 12 makes. I think any team in college basketball would love that, but not Mr. 41.
I mean, they shoot an excellent percentage from the field, from the three, and they're 17 to 21 at the free throw line. They scored 97 points, and he, as a coach, still feels like they left probably 10 attempts from the three-point line out there somewhere.
That's so funny, man.
Now, and that's but that is so refreshing to me to know, and that's why I'm going to keep saying it. There's going to be a game this year where they're going to hit 18 to 23s on someone, and then we're going to all be sitting here looking at each other like, holy cow. Like, this team is a machine when it gets to that area, because it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but when they get to that number, look how efficient they were. They've been efficient in every game. I know how they hit threes against Duke. It was kind of in stretches, right? They hit 5 early and then 5 over like the next 35 minutes or 34 minutes, but they were timely made threes. They were still efficient with their attempts and their makes. This team doesn't seem like they're going to force anything, though. Like, Mark Pope wants 35 threes, 36 threes a game. He doesn't want them to force those attempts, though. So what they're getting, if they're getting to the free throw line and shooting 20-plus attempts, then they're attacking. If they're getting some back cuts and getting some easy twos or some buckets in transition, they're going to be a take and get, what the defense gives you. But when this thing really sets in and they start getting north of that 30 number and up to 32, 33, 34, 35 attempts a game, you're still going to see Kentucky being very efficient, but they're going to have a night where it's going to pop, Jack, and they're going to end up being 50% from three, I'm telling you, and being like 18 to 36 or 19 to 37 or something.
And I think if there was one, we've talked about the recruiting concerns, we've talked about, lack of postseason wins and other, the wonders that we had, not even like major questions, but just like, hey, is Pope going to be able to do that here? One of the top ones was, was this just going to a gimmicky offense? Like, was this going to be an offense that, like, reminds me of some of the Alabama teams several years back, like when Nate Oates was really just starting to kind of find his groove and make a name for himself as like just, only threes in layups and dunks. Like that's our only identity, that we're, if you take anything outside of the paint or the 3-point line, you're running laps or, whatever the case is. There was a time where Nate Oates kind of had that same reputation of like, well, yeah, it's fun to watch, but like, is it a winning brand of basketball? And he's kind of worked to adapt and adjust and turn it into a Final Four contending system. So like, it works. We have evidence that it can work. So seeing them win outside of gimmicky ways, I think, has been really important for me as well, where they are, yes, 12 to 25 is huge, but it's not, like you said, 18 of 36 every single game. Sometimes they're getting to the free throw line a ton and mucking things up defensively and, winning the transition battle. They're doing little things in every single game that make you go, okay, it's not just kind of if you're not hot one night, then you're cooked, because there have been games that, yes, they're shooting extremely efficiently up to this point, but it just doesn't feel gimmicky in a way that I think some people were wondering and questioning coming in, has me, thinking that the ceiling might be a little bit higher than maybe we thought coming in.
I think so too. And, I'm looking at season stats right now, and their numbers through 4, they have got 110 threes attempts on the year right now. They're shooting, if this is right, that's 41%, almost 42% from 3. So you got it on the screen for me there. So right at 42% from 3. Opponents, meanwhile, are shooting 23% from 3. In the past, Jack, how many times have we seen that number flipped with Kentucky, where they're giving up a ton of threes, but they're not hitting threes at a clip that's impressive? So, and Kobe Brea, let's talk about it. 15 of 19 from 3. 15 of 19 from 3 on the season, shooting 79%.
Look at that number. Look at that on a graphic. Look how dumb that looks. Like,
it looks like a mistake.
It looks like you're like, yeah, that's not right. There's no way that's real.
And I mean, but just go down the list here. Otega Oweh, 6 of 11, 54%. Kobe Bryant, 15 and 19, 78%. Lamont Butler, 4 of 9, 44%. He's not going to take a ton of threes. Like, he's not going to shoot 150 threes this season. But if he's efficient in the ones he attempts, then that efficiency for Kentucky goes up. You go down the list, Jaxson Robinson is 7 of 22, 31 to 32%. That's going to get better, in my opinion. He's going to be the guy that's going to take a lot of shots, but I think that's going to climb. Andrew Carr, 50%. Ainsley Almanor, 38.5%. Like, these numbers are insane. The one guy that I think is also going to shoot it better is Kerr. Kerr's just under 30% at 5 of 17. That's going to climb. Like, this team shoots it well at a number of spots, but defensively they've given up 26 of 113 against teams that shoot the ball well and like to take shots. Like, they're defending the three-point line at a good clip. I know Duke missed some. But there's another thing that's being played into this. There's another thing that goes into made shots from the three-point line. Your conditioning, and are you tired? And when you watch Kentucky play teams right now, every single opponent is exhausted for the final 10 minutes that they play Kentucky. Meanwhile, Kentucky's fresh. And here comes another wave of guys that's got fresh legs taking and making shots. Mark Pope's depth that Kentucky has right now. I'm all the time talking about having depth and depth of talent. This system has a ton of depth to it that it's going to run fresh legs in there and guys that can take and make shots. Duke got tired late, missed some shots. Lipscomb, when you got Kentucky just running it at you for 40 minutes, they're going to get tired. So right now, when you look at the three-point numbers and you flip them, 41% for Kentucky, opponents 23%. Jack, that's elite. That's an elite combination to make you very, very good and successful in college basketball on both ends of the floor.
I mean, you're talking 9 very good players. Maybe not any one of them great. We've talked about how they're very trait heavy, specialty guys, where Kobe might not be the best defender, but he is the best shooter in college basketball. Nobody, it's not close. But a lot of different specialty guys where they might not have any truly like top heavy certified pros at the top, but their depth is so ridiculously strong where when Pope says that they're coming in waves, like, you're really starting to see that, like you said, in the last 10 minutes where, Cooper Flag, that Duke game was the perfect example where, like, they're throwing haymakers at you and you're going, man, I think they're more talented. I think that they're more athletic. I think that they're longer. I think that they got it. Cooper is a damn good talent and we just don't have it. And then you just kind of start to see that wear and tear kick in, 10 minutes left in the game, and you go, why are we still coming at them as early and often as we are, and they're not really responding to it the way they were in the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes? And then you go, okay, here's where we start to find that momentum and flip the game. Are we going to see that against Gonzaga? Are we going to see, other teams have depth? Like, I'm really interested to see. Gonzaga has turned into, like, the game for me. I'm so fascinated to see, because that's a really, really talented team, and they're steamrolling guys right now. So I'm really interested to see how the depth works out against a really deep, really talented team like Gonzaga. But
And that's a week that's going to test them a little bit, right? Because they go to Clemson and then they're across the country on a cross-country road trip like that. That's a week that's really going to test the depth of what Kentucky has. But that's one, if you're Mark Pope, that you're like, man, this is a week where we may cement ourselves as what people already think, maybe a national title contender, Final Four caliber team. You go through that week, and maybe you go 1-1 or you go 2-0, man, you're really starting to talk about what this team can do. But, man, where they're at right now, Jack, on November 20th, I mean, I thought they'd be good, but I'm going to admit it. Like, I knew the system was strong, but I didn't know if the players matched the strength of the system. What I'm learning is they're equal. You got a strong system, you got a strong roster, you got strong individual talents, and you blend it, and, man, they're a force.
Oh, you know who else is a force? Our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations, special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Also want to talk about our friends at Wunder Fan. I'm a big fan of Wunder Fan. They're very, very cool, very unique experience for every fan attending games. New sponsor of ours. It's the first of its kind basketball arena rewards app where fans earn real rewards simply by cheering for their favorite team. All you need to do is head to the app store to download the app, check in once you're at the game. I did it last night for the Lipscomb game, and it lets your earnings grow. It's that easy. During each game you attend, you'll earn in the background. Once you press start, once you have enough earnings, you can redeem for gift cards to your favorite brands like Fanatics, Dick's, Lululemon, StubHub, Home Depot, and many more. There's even ticket giveaways and fun contests you can use with your points later to enter. New rewards are added weekly. Right now, users will get 50 free Wunder just for signing up. That'll score you a $10 off Fanatics code plus a chance to win tickets to the national championship. Plus, we have a special deal for listeners on this show. After signing up, head to your profile page, redeem code KSR for an additional 40 free Wunder. Again, that's code KSR. Head to the app store, search Wunder Fan. That's WUNDERFAN, and start being paid for your fan loyalty. Wunder Fan, it pays to be a fan. The fan aspect of things wants me to bring up just how dangerous Big Blue Nation was. Oh my gosh, man. We had the same concerns we had about the Duke kind of hangover and all that. I was wondering what the response was going to be from Big Blue Nation. The guys being able to see their team for the first time at Rupp Arena since the big win. Tuesday night game, ASUN competition. What's the crowd going to look like? Is it going to be one of those? And you see just nationally ticket sales going down and people opting to stay home versus, just staying home in the comfort of their home, watching on TV, listening on radio, all those things. People giving away their tickets on Planet Fitness and, begging the students to show up on your post-game radio rants and like all of those things. I was curious, just wondering from afar what the fan base was going to do for this one in particular. And I mean, it was 98% full, Sean. It really blew. Even the one upper, there was that one section, 235, I believe, where you can pretty much count on a couple rows every single game to be empty. Even those, it wasn't totally full, but just pretty dang near close to it, and everywhere else was packed. Lipscomb fans were there, and I thought it was a blast. They were having fun. There was one poor soul behind me, bless their heart. It was like 7 minutes left in the game. Lipscomb fan said, "It's not over yet, guys. Come on, keep fighting." And I'm like, well, yeah, technically it's not over yet, but you're down by 40 points, so it's over. But the experience was just so breathtaking, and talking to some people around the program, like they've been using that to send it to recruits and say, hey, you want a Tuesday night at 9:00 taking on a Lipscomb team? Do you want to have this type of fan support, playing for a blue blood on, streaming on SEC Network Plus? Do you want to be a part of this experience? And it works. Like, those things are so impactful on the recruiting trail. So just being there, I was fascinated to see what the crowd was going to look like. And Big Blue Nation was just unbelievable. I was really, really, really impressed with the fan turnout. And it's the Pope excitement. Like, I feel like people are just bought in. They're ready to celebrate this team. It's a fun freaking team.
We always wondered, like, when, the honeymoon phase of the hire, right? And the momentum that carried from April through May through June and July all the way to August, September, you're like, is there going to be a moment where it kind of comes down just a little bit? And I think a lot of people, not this fan base, but outside of Kentucky, just circled Duke and said, ha ha, it's going to happen here. Man, this this feel good has been going for a while now, but it's only getting stronger because now I think the hope of what he could bring and kind of reinvigorating an energy that had been missing for a long time. And that's no knock on Cal and the previous staff, but what was here got old, right? Like, in a lot of people, I think a lot of people lost their way. I think the program lost its way. I think the fan base kind of lost its way with it, and we just didn't know how to feel about any of it. Well, right now the vibes are high, but it's got likable dudes in it, and it's got a head coach that always says the right thing. Like, when he's all the time talking that it's not about him, and he wants his guys to leave here feeling about Kentucky the way he feels about Kentucky. That's a powerful line. And then how about this? We've not went live. We've not recorded since the all access stuff came out from the Duke game, and him calling the spin move on Cooper Flag, and the coaching that you're seeing going on at halftime, and having a championship chest. Like, every coach in America or the state of Kentucky is going to start saying, you got to have a championship chest. I'm probably going to say
I woke up yesterday morning. I woke up, went to the gym, and I said, it wasn't even supposed to be my chest today, but it's game day, baby. We got to hit the bench press. Like, I sat there and said, I'm going to put Pat Kelsey on both sides of this thing. I'm going to hit a PR today. Like, it is championship chest Tuesday, just because of that. It's awesome. It's hilarious.
How many Pat Kelseys can you bench? God, what a time. But yeah, a championship chest. And right now Kentucky's got a championship chest. I don't, but
and how about Mark Fox jumping in there in the huddle, realizing it in real time, saying, we got more dudes than them. Go, the wave thing that we were talking about, how they just keep coming and coming and coming. Mark Fox was kind of the one guy that didn't get a ton of love when he got the job, where it was like, he kind of became the punching dummy for Cal at Georgia, and, really struggled at Cal and, as a head coach. But that's a dude with so many years of experience that has seen all types of basketballs. Great dude and very talented at what he does. Like, he's had his own coaching journey, and, it is what it is. Like, yes, the timeline is weird because we've only known him for being like, let's go beat the crap out of Georgia again, Mark Fox, instead of like Kentucky assistant Mark Fox. So it's different. It's weird, but that's a really, really high level basketball mind that's able to just interject in those little moments, like one little random huddle moment where he can, interject his own little blips here and there. That is so valuable. I think that video doubled, triple, quadruple checked just how valuable this staff is for me. And I think Pope has an absolute just juggernaut of a staff.
He put this, we talked so much about how he put this roster together and how it was strategically pieced together. I'm seeing the same traits with the staff and the same kind of connectivity when it comes to the pieces that he put in place to coach his kids. And the halftime adjustments that he made, I thought the video behind the all access, and, it was the journey in the past, and we'll see how long these are going to be. That was a long one. It was a really good one. And it took a lot of time, and credit to those people over there in the video team and content production. Like, that was an incredible thing to kind of recap just how good that night was in Atlanta. But he went into that halftime talk, Jack, and he didn't just throw everything at these guys. He focused in on an area that's like ball screen defense, ball screen defense, ball screen defense.
And he said, hey, what are you guys seeing?
Yep.
He obviously knows what he has seen, but I want you to tell me what you have seen so we can do this together. It's not me yapping at you. It's us getting on the same page together. That was so intentional on his part.
And talking about that there's a lot of people that would love to be in the position that they're in, right? Like, right there in the moment. And the moment wasn't too big for any of them, and the moment wasn't too big for Mark Pope. And what I'm starting to realize here is the way we all reacted, and it wasn't everybody, but I was one, that the night the news broke that he was going to be the next head coach, I was like, man, I was a little bummed out because we had heard so many other names, right? Like, we had focused ourselves on Scott Drew for probably more than a year. And then Dan Hurley becomes in the picture and all these other names. But what you felt like, man, Kentucky settled with Mark Pope. What they got, Jack, is they got a really good college basketball coach that is at a place that he loves and at a place that is his whole life, and he's given back to it. But he's also, to me, a guy that I think is going to continue to develop a reputation to just being a basketball genius. Like, this guy is intentional with his words. He's intentional with his actions. He is calm at presenting them in all scenarios and all environments. Whether you're up 10, down 10, he's the same guy. I think he has a poise about him that is going to be infectious throughout high school recruiting in the transfer portal, that guys are going to tear down the walls to get to Lexington to play for him. And that is an unbelievable thing to have, that you can go get dudes, but not just going and getting dudes, but you got to go get dudes and you got to be able to coach them. And I think you got the full effect with Mark Pope of being able to do all those things.
And talking to people in the grassroots world and just on the national landscape that just kind of know the pulse of college athletics and who's kind of rising and falling and the trajectories of everybody. And, you know, the way they talk about Mark Pope and say, like, hey, he's feared, like he has picked up a level of attention nationally to where it's no longer like, hey, good for him that he's doing a good thing and getting to live out his good old Kentucky boy dream in Lexington, you know, at his alma mater. Like, it started as that. Like, I think they kind of thought the press conference was a little artificial, and it was like the fan base kind of lifting him up and like kind of like this pity party thrown for him, because everybody knows that the real choices for the fan base were always Scott Drew and Dan Hurley, and then Mark Pope somewhere way down the line. And it's like when they started rallying behind him and around him, it was like, oh, good for him. I'm glad he's getting to experience this. And the tune has shifted, you know, in such a way where you have NBA scouts and you know, grassroots shakers and movers, the guys that put you know, kids in different spots, and you know, those guys reaching out to me and saying, like, he's pretty feared. Like, when you talk to other coaches about, like, hey, who are you worried about for this guy, or who's, you know, the guy really kind of shaking things up nationally, Mark Pope is the guy that, like, has picked up the most momentum out of anybody in college basketball. And I just don't think anybody could, like, I couldn't imagine Scott Drew in this role right now. Like, I couldn't envision, like, Dan Hurley is incredible and back-to-back national champions, but it's like the personality and the messaging is it's so calculated and on the nose with everything that comes out of his mouth that I couldn't even envision a scenario with Scott Drew leading a press conference here, or, you know, Dan Hurley, you know, roaming the sidelines as a $15 million a year guy. Like, I can't even envision that, because it has worked out so magically, and other schools are starting to feel that. Like, his presence, the presence is starting to get felt on the recruiting trail. Like, there's some people that head-to-head battle with Duke was really, really telling, and it was like, I think the future at Kentucky is a whole heck of a lot brighter than it is at Duke. And that's like unbiased people away from both situations, just putting their 2 cents in. And the guys that he got in the recruiting trail, 3 signatures before he ever coached a game. Like, if things are going as well now with barely any sample size to work with, no film, nothing up to the point where the season started, and now, like, what does year 2 look like? What does year 5 look like? Like, the ball is rolling. The snowball is rolling pretty fast right now nationally.
It is, and I think it's only going to get better. Like, this is still the early stages of Mark Pope's Kentucky program. Like, you're still in the early days of this thing. Like, you're 4 games in, and what he's doing now, I think that Pope is always going to be a guy that's going to adapt to whatever he needs to get done to win at Kentucky. I don't think it's ever going to get stale with him. And I mean, I think he's brilliant. I think he's smart. I think he's got a great staff around him. I think he's got great talent in this program that want to do well. and be the best version of themselves as well, especially these guys that are super seniors and old. But when you look at what they can do in recruiting and where he wants to go, I think he's putting Kentucky in a spot to where all those things that you and I talked about, what does your roster construction look like moving forward? Can you recruit elite level high school talent? And Cal would always say, I don't want to be a hat on a table. I think Pope is so good at identifying what this program needs in all areas, whether it be staff, roster, support staff, it doesn't matter. When it comes to evaluating talent, and I said this, these guys that he has landed in this class, the Malachi Morenos, the Jasper Johnson, those guys that maybe you looked at and you're like, okay, where's the fit with Cal? Like, with Malachi and things. Would Pope go after, Malachi? To me, knowing what Pope sees and how he views adding people to his roster, he is not a guy that's just going to go get somebody because they're down the street. He sees a fit in Malachi, and if he says that Malachi is the number one center in the country, I'm probably going to believe him because he's not going to waste those comments on people. So to me, Mark Pope feeling highly about these guys adds value to what I already had of them. And I think when he attaches his name to something, in his opinion, Jack, I think that I've seen enough from him in the short 7 months that we've known him as the Kentucky basketball coach, or whatever the month is now, that I trust him so much that he's going to the evaluation is going to be spot on, that they haven't missed in any area so far with this roster and with what they're doing and how they're recruiting, Jack. Like, this has been a 7 to 8 month stretch of just positive momentum, and I don't know if it's slowing down.
And we talked a little about recruiting and just the evaluation and just the pivots and the moments here recently. I don't know if you read that article that Larry Vaught did, that interview with Caden Lewis's dad. He said flat out that Caden was committing to UConn, that it was a done deal, that he was going to call the schools involved and say, hey, I'm going to go play for Dan Hurley. Mark Pope was going to come visit, and Caden was like, probably not even worth your time because I'm about to cut you from my list. And Pope at that point went and visited him 4 consecutive weeks and then set up one final meeting and, went to lunch with him in his own community, went to the barber shop where, kind of interacting with his people, and the effort in the way the messaging and the understanding, the way Caden's dad described it, said that like Mark Pope had this desire to understand us as people and who we interacted with and what our community looks like. And that was so important to him that they went from being ready to cut Kentucky entirely from his list to saying, hey, we want to take an official visit, and if this goes well, we're going to commit. Like, it was just a total flip. And if you think about just that pivot right there and the fork in the road for all parties involved, Caden Lewis about to commit to UConn, Braylon Mullins was at one point favoring Kentucky, and Eric Reeby was very outspoken about wanting to play at Kentucky as well. There was a chance that Kentucky's class or UConn's potential class adding a Caden Lewis could have all been at Kentucky and vice versa. And it's just so funny to think that like Dan Hurley was the golden goose, the guy that we all wanted, was going to throw a blank check at him back in the offseason. Now you're swimming in the same waters with him on the recruiting trail with the same evaluation eye that like, hey, we decided to pivot and go with Malachi and Jasper to go with a Caden. We took a Caden from you, but the guys that we were about to take end up signing with Dan Hurley, and that's their future. Like, that's the, hey, we're back-to-back national champions, top 2 in the country right now, and we're thinking ahead for next season. So it's just very... if you're swimming in the same waters as UConn right now in terms of evaluation, I think you're doing a really, really good job. And to take those guys and bring them to your own program, but it's a testament to the snowball. It's a testament to like when the momentum is going to slow down, because that's some big boy recruiting right there. Like, that's some really high level recruiting stuff that one of the main questions people had about him coming in.
It was. And we can't sit here and act like there's not going to be adversity to face at some point. Like there's
probably.
Like, yes, we can't sit here on November 20th and just think that it's always going to be easy, or it's always, and not saying that it's easy. Like, they're working very hard to get the success that they're having, but there will come moments where they will be tested and adversity, and we'll see how they respond to it. But I think he's so intentional with his prep. I think he's so intentional with his language that he uses with these guys, that adversity is not going to even be a bump in the road. It's just going to be an individual moment that happens, and then they're moving on to the next play or the next opportunity. And I think that they have great leadership within the team. I think they have great leadership within their staff, that I'm just, the confidence that I have in Mark Pope and what he does, it grows every single day, every single opportunity, every single time I see them take the floor and I turn on the tape. And then the confidence that I have in him, I just don't see him failing at Kentucky. Like, I'm just so confident that what he's going to do. And look, a Hall of Fame coach left. It was his time to leave Kentucky and go on to another thing. Who's to say that we're not sitting here watching a future Hall of Famer lead the Kentucky basketball program? Now, I'm not trying to say that that's what's going to happen. There's still a lot to be done. But when Dan Hurley walked in the doors at UConn, did we know? Like, there was a
resume was deemed not good enough at UConn at the time.
And he's won back-to-back national championships and on his way to a Hall of Fame career. Like, come on. Who's to say that Kentucky's not got the same, not saying they're going to win back-to-back, but the longevity of him being here. And here's the thing, he's not going anywhere. Like, this is his place. This is his home. He's made for this. Like, this is a thing that if it goes well and they get it right and they get something rolling in a time where so much has changed in college basketball, and he is carrying you through that change. And I think having a guy that's going to be able to touch a lot of those things that need to get done in college basketball to have success, it's putting them in a good spot.
Couldn't agree more. Kentucky basketball games under Mark Pope are must-watch events, as we saw Tuesday night against Lipscomb. But don't just watch the games. Be there with Game Time. You get the sound from the court, feel of the crowd, and don't forget about the celebrity sightings. That's not just the Kentucky games, but all sports and events, including concerts and shows. Use Game Time and its new feature called Game Time Picks to make your life even easier, filtering out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees. At checkout, seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code KSR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time, Sean. We got to wrap up here very quickly, but big one on Friday, not a big one, but BBN Invitational. We're controlling our destiny, baby. Like, it's BBN Invitational. Like, you only get this once. Some people are going to Maui, some people are getting these other, Bahamas events. We get Jackson State on Friday night. What do you want to see out of the Cats on Friday?
You're getting a lot of the same answers from me every single time, but it's just the consistency that we're seeing, and them getting even more comfortable in being who they are. Does Kentucky get to that 35, 36 three-point attempts in a game? Is there going to be a game, Jack, where they're going to take 43s? Like, there's a give and take there, but there's going to be a night. And is that one coming up? Maybe. But this stretch of games coming up here is, to me, prep to get them ready for that week of Clemson and Gonzaga's. But just keep winning, keep looking good doing it, and keep defending. Keep buying into the team defensive numbers, and let's see what this team does.
Couldn't agree more, Sean. We got to jump out of here because we are transitioning straight into 11 personnel. Probably a little late. Hope they're not pissed off at me. But, Sean, where can fans find your basketball expertise?
Yeah, you don't have that graphic ready to roll there, do you? I think
We're good, man. We're good.
Let's throw it up here. Let's see. There it is, at _Coach S. Smith. That's where you can follow my work.
You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus, Intel, all of the analysis. We got some football movement. You might want to go check that out if you are looking for the future of Kentucky football. So make sure you go subscribe there, subscribe to KSR Plus, and we will see you on the other side breaking down hopefully another big win for the Cats over Jackson State. We will see you then.